Welcome to the First Thought podcast at Galway International Arts Festival. I am Paul Fahey, Artistic Director of the festival, and in this series you will get a slice of the festival you can listen to anytime, anywhere. Tune in for fascinating First Thought talks, First Thought Backstage, final hours and more. You can listen back to all episodes via GIAF.ie or find First Thought on any podcast platform.
So thank you all for joining us for this post-show talk. My name is Ian Walsh. I'm a lecturer in University of Galway in the Theatre Studies Department, and it's my great privilege to have this post-show talk today with the writer, director, and indeed performer of the show, Luke Murphy, and indeed the other performer in the show, but a small part this evening, a very large part in the other episodes.
He's in it.
Will Thornton. Thompson. So I guess just to begin, I'm sure everybody's got a huge amount of questions. It's a really rich piece of work, and there's a lot of deep themes in there as well. But we might maybe just kind of start off with the process of it, and maybe the origins of the show and how this kind of developed for you.
Sure.
Yeah.
I have a little book full of kind of like my Sunday shows. So COVID happened and all the shows that were supposed to happen weren't going to. So I kind of opened my book of Sunday shows, and then just through a kind of a mix of kind of, that could actually be like this, that kind of came about. In one way, when the response for live performance was to stream everything, and that was it was a great initiative from the Arts Council. It kept people working, but suddenly theatre was kind of set to compete with, what was it, Tiger King. And that there's a limited moment where you kind of say, actually, this isn't our form, and the strengths of our form aren't to be seen on the screen. And if people can flick over to Netflix, eventually they're going to do it, So I kind of thought, well, if we're being kind of asked to work in television, what would it be to make a theatre show that's kind of for a Netflix generation? What is it to make a show that works like television, that uses the structure of television and the kind of the main question of television, which is kind of like, how do you get people to tune back in? So there was that was a big impetus for it, and the glass box and the set and everything came from really, everything was really a manifestation of just a response to something over the COVID process. So I was in a house in West Cork, and it had a living room that was about 5 meters by 3.5 meters, and I was like, well, I can rehearse in here, so maybe if I can have a performer, I was a 2-bedroom house, so I was like, I'll see if I can get one person to come and we can live together and we can just work in our living room, and we'll just make a show that happens in a living room. So that was one part of it. The voyeuristic, originally the show, instead of having glass walls, there was booths. So every audience member was up against one pane of glass, and it was kind of 8 audience members could see it in a given performance, and everyone therefore was in their own space with their own ventilation, and they kind of made it a piece that could be seen over COVID. So that, it's not that everything was just problem solving, but there's something about the voyeurism and what it means to look into another world. So then that was kind of, okay, well, what's the world that you're looking into? So a lot of the time with the shows I make, I know what the world of the work is, and I know what I kind of want. I'm kind of interested in what the audience engagement is, or the audience's experience. And then I went in a process then afterwards to kind of really work out what the narrative was that would support that world. So originally it was that the world is ending, and the world has come together to decide whether humanity is worth saving. And they've got people in a room that are being observed, but the world has actually ended and they don't know, so they're just still in there for years and years and years, and no one's watching anymore. And that kind of fell away, because how do you actually represent whether humanity is worth saving with just 2 people? It's not a question that actually holds weight. So then the narrative, they're not telling you what the narrative is yet, but, but it went through, like, then we kind of worked backwards and we kind of said, like, okay, well, it's this and it's this and it's this, and we kind of came to the story that we're at.
Okay, yeah. And how did the process in terms of choreography and then scripted pieces and that sort of thing work? And was Will, how did this work for you as well? I'll ask Luke first and I'll come to you then about how you enter this process in terms of how it works. So how did the kind of piecing it together in terms of the choreography and then the various kind of set pieces, I guess?
I developed episode 1 probably before before in research. So I had episode 1 and I had the structure of the 4 episodes worked out, that I kind of knew the map of the 4 episodes. I'd made episode 3 more or less on my own before I got to the creative process. And you know, like, it's really hard to say actually, like, what the process of writing and movement is, because it starts with just thematically and narratively just a huge, almost like just a jungle of ideas and a jungle of kind of things that feel instinctively linked or somewhere inside me, and then the process in the studio a lot of the time is actually trying to make sense of what that instinct is, and deciding what has a place and what doesn't. So I wrote a lot. I was writing in the evenings a lot, so I would kind of work during the day and would maybe improvise something, and then I'd go, okay, I think we need a scene that does this narratively, and I'd go away that night and I'd write that scene and then come in and try it. And then choreographically we worked together. We worked together. Certainly episode 4 we made completely together. Will was a bit sick, so he got COVID, so he came a little bit late.
I had COVID for real. Yeah. I'm not sure where along the line the creative process I joined. Yeah. So I think there was several researchers, right?
There's a lot of research.
There were periods of research and development before I joined, and then I went and got COVID, so I was 2 weeks late to the process, something like 2 weeks late. So there was another dancer, Dermot, as well, who was in the space with Lily. So I guess you were all devising, and then I came in and hit the ground running, really. Choreographically, there was some collaborations, I think, but Luke was spearheading the ideas, and followed it from there.
Wow. And I guess because it is such a unique kind of format, this reaction, kind of making theatre in a TV way, and also for people who are kind of TV literate, I guess, as well, or Netflix literate in a way, is what we're talking about, I guess. How have you found kind of the reactions or that process in terms of, because it's a different show, I guess, each night, but then it's the marathon episode or the binge watch, I guess, where you do it all together, and have you had people come up? It might be interesting maybe to ask, actually we could maybe ask it, just hands up, have people seen episode 1 or 2 here already? Oh, fantastic.
Hey.
And did any people see it in 2021? Okay. Has anyone seen all 4 episodes? Okay. So what I find interesting is it does have that tune-in factor in a way of, like, somebody might have seen episode 1 and 3 maybe, or 2 just, or the whole thing. So we start maybe from the performer perspective. How does that work? Is it nice working in this way? Is it complicated trying to keep track? Like, is there emotional scores that go on with this sort of thing for you? Or, I guess it's a pretty woolly question, but yeah.
Maybe I didn't completely understand the question, but emotional scores, definitely. I think it's very, very revealing doing 1 episode a night. We've learned a lot about the episodes individually, doing it this way. And coming this time around doing the omnibus, all 4 episodes, for, 4 nights in a row? 5 nights in a row, and then coming to do 1, 2, and 3, 4 separately. It's I think, shown us something.
It's interesting, especially so from a performer point of view, your audience, like, wonderful, amazing audience, but when the audience have been with you for 2 hours by the time I'm on my own being a weatherman, they're so invested in what you're doing. So in your first 5 minutes, your first 10 minutes in the show, when you're doing an episode in isolation, you're working much harder to convince your audience to invest in you. So at first, I think when we did 2 yesterday, our 6 p.m. of 2 was a little bit jarring because people didn't know what the hell was going on, and and we also were used to going into 2 with this kind of emotional investment already set up. And then even though the glass is there, like, you know, the energetic exchange with an audience it's so fertile, or like what's the radiant. So you'd be very sensitive to that, even inside a fish tank, you know.
That was a good question. So you can still kind of feel the audience.
Completely. And like the thing about dance is, like, you know, everyone's so literate in body language. So people, like, there's a perspective that watching dance can be a little bit kind of can be like trying to listen to a language that you don't know for people. But actually, like, everyone's so literate in body language, and we're also kind of sensitive to people's body language. So as a dancer as well, you're really sensitive to the body language of an audience, just in terms of like how their people are settled in their seats, how people's movement are, those micro things that happen. So especially when the proximity is so close, all of that is information that you're getting feedback in real time on the rhythm of how you're working, which is what's really interesting about making work that's performed in close proximity to people.
So I mean, I've one more question, and then I'll open it to the audience to the whole thing. But it was about technology and remediation. Some of the themes that are in the piece, obviously, as well, around preserving things at one level, and then kind of freedoms to innovate at another. And for me, this is a complex question, I guess. In terms of the choreography and how you're putting together the show, one of the things that we got a flavour of tonight, but it's in all the other episodes as well, is the amount of different styles of dance that you actually kind of show us as well. But there's that amazing kind of feat that you're going through all these different styles. Like tonight we had the kind of Fred Astaire stuff that was there. But at the same time, the other thing that was really exciting is how, you know, you're also creating kind of work that's reflecting how we view things. So kind of tonight's piece was almost like the time lapse, where you were, you know, and that we're kind of used to these conventions through streaming services, through television, that you were kind of replicating those as well. So to me, I mean, there's a quote about the theatre being kind of the preserver of ancient norms, but also the adversary of tradition, I guess. And that you're kind of doing that all the time. So I guess the question is, how did you go about? At one level, there were, you know, you had to kind of choose kind of all these different sort of styles, these snippets that you're going to use. But then at the other level, how, for instance, would you have done that kind of time lapse thing? Are you kind of looking at yourself back on videos and stuff, and then trying to replicate those rhythms of kind of time? Like how? Because you're showing how the body is affected by technology thematically, but very much through the process of what we're seeing, which is an amazing achievement of the show. And I was just curious, like how you went about that. I got there.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, a great kind of insight into the work. I don't know if my answer would be worthy of the question. I think that in terms of choosing the dance, like there's so many different ways in which you have to consider how you make a show, or for me anyway. So there was the narrative structure of the show and how we were going to structure these episodes, and how we're kind of drip feeding the story, so that by the time you get to 4, ideally pretty much everything that we planned gets reconnected in some way. So if you saw all 4 episodes like 7 times, pretty much every line of text in the show has a relevance to something in the room, or to something else that everything is in reference to something else. So like the interlinking of all that content is one part of making the show. Another part is the energetic line. So, you know, rhythmically, it's really important to give people you want people to experience that sense of what's going to happen next, and that be kind of part of while they're with you. You have to figure out how to energetically upend expectations. So then also the use of movement, and the use of just kind of, in the first episode, all of a sudden we're just doing a disco dance and it kind of comes out of nowhere. And part of that is it fits within the framework of the work, and with the framework of what we're trying to do with the piece, but also within that episode, the first 10 minutes is like this slow burn where like it's slow and it's quiet, and then all of a sudden everything is colourful and bright, and it kind of takes whatever expectation you started off with and it says actually all of this can happen as well. So that's also part of how you have to kind of go through the work and figure out what's that script, like what's that energetic script. So some of the dance work and the choice to do it, to have the breakdown of the character happen through a jazz dance, like part of that is also how to kind of look at what has to happen narratively, and then look at how you can get there through an obtuse and unexpected way of kind of the body telling it. So that's one thing. In terms of the time lapse, like that's just us doing dancing. And then the wider collaborative team who have managed to leave the city in time to avoid this are all just an amazing group of artists. I hadn't worked with anyone before this, and I just feel like I rolled double sixes like over and over again. So like Stephen Dodd is the lighting designer, and his language for this kind of breakdown of the space and this erosion of the space, it can be a lot. It can be a lot in the eyes at times, but it's also much more than just a flashing light. When you watch it more, the intricacy of what he's built and the logic behind what he's built in terms of what it is that activates at what time, it's its own beautiful dramaturgy. So that collaboration in terms of also how those effects and what we're using to create this effect in the body and how we're responding to it, that's very much in conversation with him and with Rob Maloney, the sound designer. And like talking about collaboration, pretty much everyone who's in the room is in the process. Like everyone is in the process, and like everyone's voice is welcome, and there's no lanes. Like there's no stay in your lane. Like everyone is welcome to share whatever comes into their head. So that means that you're creating a culture where people are able to get really excited about their ideas because they know their ideas are welcome. So it's lovely.
But that integration comes out so clearly in the show with how everything is so connected and works so beautifully together. Like I said, I'd open it out to the audience, and I'll do that now. So if anybody has a question, we might just do the hand up if that's okay, and then I'll just call on you, and then if you can just speak your question. We have one up here,
Just curious, from your hats that you've got with this show, what's your favourite episode as a director versus actor / dancer versus writer?
Performatively, 3 is the most challenging for me. So 3 is the biggest challenge as a performer. That's my fancy name for today. So 3 as a performer, 3 is the biggest challenge for me because I kind of have to hold space for the most of it. I like all of them. They're all really different, and they all have different strengths, and they all have different problems. I don't have one. Like I really don't have one. I really don't have one. I like them all. They all have a really different thing that I like about them. Like 4 is really fulfilling to do, both dance-wise and as also just the way it culminates. It really feels like you've finished a journey. 3 is super hard to do. 2's got so many changes, so like it's the most choppy actually in terms of and then 1 is this kind of fever dream a little bit, So I'm a useless answer. I'm sorry.
It's like asking to choose among your children.
Firstborn.
2 is the one that went through the most iterations. So like 2 is the one that really we kept on going like this isn't working. We kept on changing it up until like 2 days before Tech back in 2021. So that's useful information.
Today was really good.
Is there another question? Yeah.
I'm one of the people who just landed into episode 3 with nothing but just love people telling me you have to go and see an episode you can. So I'm sorry, I know very little about the life of the show before me standing right here. And it struck me during it that if you were watching it on television or on Netflix, you'd think, God, it's so theatrical. And when you're sitting in there, you're thinking, Jesus, it's just like Netflix. It kind of finds that part of the Venn diagram really naturally and really successfully. Have you considered filming it?
We did. So actually, like, one of the reasons of doing the episodes individually this time around works a little differently is because though originally we made a film of each episode, and then if you got a ticket to any episode, you got the films for all of them. So you were able to kind of tailor, like, maybe I'll watch 1 and 2 at home, and I'll come watch 3 and 4 live, or maybe I just watch 3 and then I kind of go, Jesus, what happened? And then I go back and watch the other ones. And we didn't share them this time, really because the world is kind of, in a way, isn't the appetite for watching live material at home is in a different place than it was a few years ago. But that made the question of doing the episodes individually, like, it's not as robustly supported as it was a few years ago. So we have films of them, and they're very fond of films of them. Yeah. I watched them a lot when we were remounting the show.
Great.
I think we can take maybe just one more in.
Yeah, could you talk a little bit about how you choose the music, and can I see the playlist somewhere?
So the music is a mixture of found sound and composition by Rob Maloney. I listen to music all the time, and I make playlists before I work on a show, so I'm listening to specific things while I'm writing and while I'm thinking of scenes. And then the process with Rob. Rob is just the most talented guy. He's just the most talented guy. He's so versatile. So you kind of bring something to him, and you have to find this way of articulating what I like about music. So I'm not saying I like this, like, make me a song like that, you know. So you have to kind of actually really challenge yourself to figure out what is it about a piece of music that's important to you, and what is it achieving, and how, so that you're not asking someone to feel like they have to in any way reference or replicate that. And Rob does that, like, beautifully. Like, so the music he wrote doesn't have bear any relationship to a lot of the music that I was listening to when I was making scenes, but then the scene couldn't be done to anything else now. The playlist, cheapers, things long gone. I could give you a playlist on my next show. Like, what's in that one? Sing 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 is in that one. What else is? That's not. Well, that's a different one. Yeah. What else is found in this show?
What's the one when you put on the shoes and
the jazz dance? That's Sing Sing Sing. Like, that's Sing Sing Sing. That's the name of it. Sing Sing Sing. Yeah. That's one. I think that's one of the only things. And there's which one? Rocket Man. Oh yeah. Oh, everything else is original. Yeah. William Shatner. There's a video on YouTube of William Shatner speaking Rocket Man. So that's in there. Yeah.
What's the one where you go? I think you said this is my favorite.
Oh, that's a Hot Chip song. That's by Hot Chip. What's the name of that?
Still don't know.
No favorite. Something Craft Dinner. Crap Craft Dinner. Crap Dinner by Hot Chip. Yeah.
Well, I think we might wrap it up there. Just to thank Luke and Will again for an amazing show, and having so much energy to be able to even try to recall playlists after what you've just performed in front of us is a feat in itself. So thank you so much. So just to thank Luke and Will yet again. Thanks very much.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. For more episodes, visit giaf.ie or find the First Thought podcast on any podcast platform. First Thought is presented in association with the University of Galway.